Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at the unwilling soldier of 3 armies. Now, a lot of things happened on D-Day, which was the largest seaborne invasion in history. James Scotty Doohan of Star Trek fame was shot 6 times by his fellow countrymen, and Mad Jack Churchill stormed the beach with a sword and a bow. Another unusual thing that happened was the capture of a Japanese soldier in a German uniform by American paratroopers. As it turns out, though, this soldier was neither Japanese nor German, and was in fact a young Korean who, through a bizarre series of incidents, had been conscripted to fight with the Soviets, the Japanese, as well as the Germans during World War II. This is the story of Yang Kyoungjong. I really apologize to anyone who's Korean watching this if I screwed up the pronunciation. I tried looking it up, didn't really find anything, so I just did my best. Now, little is known about Yang's life prior to his service in World War II, other than that he was a native Korean who happened to be living in Japanese-controlled Manchuria at the start of World War II. Due to this, Yang felt himself conscripted against his will in 1938 and was forced to serve in the Kwantung Army at just 18 years old. After basic training, Yang was sent to take part in what has since become known as the battles of Khalkha Gol along the borders of Manchuria. These battles were mostly fought between the Kwantung Army and combined forces consisting of Mongolian and Soviet troops. The two countries were allies at the time, and this fighting occurred on the Khalkha River. The Japanese were insisting that this fell into the borders of Manchuria, despite claims to the contrary from Mongolia. During one particularly heated battle, Yang was captured by the Soviets in 1939 and sent to a labor camp. If the Soviet Union hadn't suffered intense casualties fighting Nazi Germany on the Eastern Front in the latter half of the war, this is probably where Yang would have stayed for the duration of World War II. But as its pool of able-bodied men had been severely depleted by extensive engagements against the Nazis, Soviet military officials made the decision in 1942 to replenish their fighting force by drafting thousands of POWs. Among the soldiers drafted was Yang, who was once again forcibly made to join the fight in World War II, this time under the Soviet flag. Yang's service with the Soviets lasted about a year, during which time he took place in numerous engagements along the Eastern Front, most notably the Third Battle of Kharkov. It was in this battle that he found himself once again a prisoner of war for yet another nation. The Germans were apparently unconcerned with how a Korean had come to end up fighting in Ukraine for the Soviets, and simply took him as a prisoner along with hundreds of other soldiers. Again, the interesting part about Yang's story would likely have ended here if the Nazis weren't in the habit of allowing prisoners they didn't execute to volunteer to serve in the army. As a result of this practice, Yang was conscripted to fight in an East Battalion in the 709 Infantry Division of the Wehrmacht. For the curious, Ost battalions were small battalions of men comprised of volunteers from the numerous regions of Europe Nazi Germany controlled. These were folded into larger units of German soldiers to serve as shock troops and backup to more experienced Wehrmacht battalions. After being conscripted to fight in the Third Reich, Yang was sent to help defend the Cotentin Peninsula in France shortly before D-Day. When D-Day arrived and Allied troops successfully stormed the beaches, Yang was among a handful of soldiers captured by the United States' 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. Initially, it was reported by Lieutenant Robert Brewer of the 506th that they'd captured 4 Asians in German uniform. While this was technically true, the 506th mistakenly believed the 4 men, Yang included, were Japanese. 3 of the men hailed from Turkestan, while Yang, as already noted, was of Korean heritage. Unable to communicate with Yang due to him not being fluent in either English or German, Yang was sent to yet another POW camp, this time in Britain, where he mercifully remained until the end of the war. When World War II ended, Yang chose not to return home, but instead immigrated to the United States, where, once again, his story becomes a little bit hazy. The only thing we can find for sure about Yang's life after World War II is that he eventually ended up settling in Cook County, Illinois, where he quietly passed away in 1992. Very unfortunately, for those of us who like the little details of a story, such as Yang's thoughts on his experiences in World War II and how he got through it all, after the war, Yang never talked publicly about his World War II misadventure. In fact, according to a 2002 article in Weekly Korea, he never even discussed it with his children, just leaving us all to wonder. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, over there on the right are a couple of other of our videos that you might enjoy if you enjoyed this one. And thank you for watching.